Hello, and welcome to Kevin's Corner TV. My name is Kevin Horton, and I'm the editor of the Gold Coast Gazette, a weekly newspaper I started along with my mother in 1991. Over the years as editor of the Gold Coast Gazette, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people. Through this show, I hope to introduce you to some of those people. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to this week's Kevin's Corner TV. I'm speaking with Matt Venturino, who's the Glen Cove EMS Chief. Matt, thank you for being on the show.
Kevin, thanks for having us. I'm glad to bring yourself and the camera crew down here, pay a visit down to headquarters. We have a very busy agency down here. Day in and day out, our volunteers answer our calls. In 2011, we answered just under 2,400 ambulance calls.
Wow.
In the city of Glen Cove.
Now, how many volunteers do you have?
We currently have 54.
54,
yep.
Okay. And they're on call at all times?
Yeah, 24 hours a day.
Okay.
Whether it's in the height of a blizzard, the 80-degree weather in the summertime, the 110-degree weather in the summertime, in the middle of a snowstorm.
You guys are out there. Now, you have 3 ambulances, correct? We're in one of them, your newest one, right?
An additional ambulance. We have 4 altogether.
Oh, okay.
We have 4 ambulances and 3 first response vehicles.
Wow. And this is the newest one, right?
Yeah, we have, which we call the twin ambulances. We have ambulance 5283 and 5282. This is actually 5283. Right. That we purchased back in 2010.
Okay. Now, you guys have separate calls from the fire department, right?
That's correct. We're separate, which is actually a pretty unique situation we have in Glen Cove. Since we're a city, we have our own separate fire department, police department, and EMS that work day in and day out together as a public safety team. Mm-hmm. EMS is obviously the medical support of that team. So any type of EMS-related incident, medical emergency, it gets handled through the city of Glen Cove EMS. Right. So we work hand in hand on fire calls with the fire department. Every ambulance call, you'll get a police officer as well. So we work hand in hand with the police department. Other city agencies, we have the harbor patrol we work with. We actually protect more waterways than land in Glen Cove. Mm-hmm. We have 7 square miles of land and 12 square miles of water.
Now, do you guys have a boat?
So we personally don't have a boat in our agency, but we augment the medical component of harbor patrol when they're out on the water patrol and seasonal from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Right. They're out.
So how are the volunteers dispatched out?
We actually have 2 different dispatch stations in Glen Cove. We have the police department that dispatches out of their headquarters, and then we have the fire department dispatch office. They dispatch for Glen Cove Fire Department, Glen Cove EMS, and Nagle Fire Department primarily, and then we're back up to some neighboring departments. So the Glen Cove Fire Department will use the radio frequency to tone us out. Each volunteer has a pager. They'll broadcast the nature of the call, a little bit of a summary of exactly what's going on, if it's an auto accident, maybe some pertinent information that a first responder would want to hear before they go on the call. And then after you get paged out, we also have radios. We have the state-of-the-art radio communication system here in Glen Cove. Good. With these digital radios that are able to talk to state, local, federal agencies as well as the county. So there's a lot of interoperable communication going on with these radios. Wow. So with this radio, you'll be able to contact the Glen Cove Fire Department dispatcher to let them know that you either respond to pick up an ambulance or you respond to the scene. Mm-hmm. As I said before, we have 3 first response vehicles that are staffed by EMTs, volunteer EMTs that will respond to the scene while someone else picks up the ambulance. So we'll get medical care and treatment faster instead of waiting for an ambulance. So the first responders would respond out to the scene, and anyone else will pick up the ambulance.
So what number should people call in an emergency? Should they dial 911 or?
Obviously, give a little brief history. Since we're a unique city, we have a public safety answering point in Glen Cove. So if you call 911 on a landline in the city of Glen Cove, it goes to the police department dispatcher. Mm-hmm. So you can call 911. Obviously, in an emergency, you're not going to think about a number to call. So 911 would be your best answer to call.
Right.
Now there's also another number, 671-3437.
Right.
That gets you to the fire department dispatcher.
And that's the one that they...
And that would be the one that's actually, you'll be talking to the dispatcher that would be dispatching the call.
Right, right.
If you call to the police department, they'll transfer you over to the fire department. Now, if you call 911 on a cell phone in the city, it goes over to Nassau County, and they would have to call several different agencies to get the call over to the dispatch station.
Right.
County. So Nassau County would put it in the system, give it to Nassau County Fire Communications, who would actually put it into the system, and they have a countywide system that will tell you the nearest department for fire department, police department, EMS, who would be primary in that area.
Right.
And if they see if it's in the city of Glen Cove, Firecom will call Glen Cove Fire Department dispatcher to let them know of the call, whether it's a fire emergency or police emergency or ambulance call.
So that could be some delay.
Yeah, there could be a small delay, maybe only a couple minutes, but a couple seconds could change life or death.
Definitely, definitely. So those little orange stickers that people can get at the firehouse and stuff.
Yeah, it has a proper number to call down here, 671-3437.
Right, and that's the same in Seacliff as well, right? Because they dispatch through Glen Cove.
Yeah, actually, I don't know the Seacliff emergency line, but there is another emergency line similar to our line that I'll get to. We have multiple lines coming from the fire department.
Right, right, excellent.
And Seacliff is a little different because if you do call 911, it wouldn't go to Glen Cove Police Department, it would go to Nassau County.
Right, exactly.
Because
So
they get police protection by Nassau County, and then they have their own fire department. And the ambulance is a part of the fire department in Seacliff.
Now, what is your average response time?
Average response time for 2011 was just over 5 minutes.
Wow. Wow, very good, very good. So that's including the volunteers getting out of bed, getting in their cars, coming down here and getting to the call, right?
And that's another aspect that you bring up, where we have first responders out 24/7. So if you see an EMS vehicle out at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's someone that is taking the time out to volunteer their time to be in a first responder, where if you have chest pain, if you have an injury from a fall, if you have a diabetic problem at 2 a.m., you already have someone that's dressed in the car ready to go at a moment's notice.
Right, right.
So we're out 24/7, 365.
And the volunteers have green lights in their cars?
Yes. Common misconception is the fire department volunteers have blue lights in their vehicles. Right. And if you see a green light, it's an EMS volunteer going on the call in their personal vehicles.
Right, right. Okay, good. So tell me about yourself. You're the chief. Are you the youngest chief ever? Or?
Yep, youngest chief. I mean, we started in 1985. So this is our 26th.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So we're a relatively new city agency.
And then they built this building attached to the fire
1995. Yeah, this was actually, where we're sitting right now, would have been the parking lot.
Right, right.
It was parked on the side of the building.
So it's attached
on the fire
to
department
the firehouse.
side. Yep.
Yep. And so tell me about yourself. How did you get involved with EMS?
I started out as a lot of EMS and fire department agencies. It runs in the family. I have my grandfather was a firefighter. My uncle is currently a firefighter. I'm in the fire department as well. So it's just another way to give back to the community. Some people say you're born into it,
right?
But it's something where you either can stand it or you can't stand it.
Right.
And if you can stand it, you're one of the few that would be able to help out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started, actually I formed I helped form the junior EMS, which was formed in 2002. I was 14 at the time when I joined that, and I rose up the ranks. I started as a New York State certified first responder, which is just under a state certification as an EMT at 16. So I've been state certified since I was 16 years old. I'm currently 24 now.
Wow, wow, that's great. And so what do you do for a living besides this?
I'm a full-time college student.
Okay, good, 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 very good. Very good.
Between here, I volunteer next door in the fire department, as well as EMS.
And,
busy schedule.
What are you studying over there?
Criminal justice.
Okay.
Hopefully to get into law enforcement.
Nice. So what are your duties as chief?
As chief, we have 7 officers, 3 chiefs and 4 line officers. So as chief of department, the chief executive officer of the city department. So I'm responsible for the administration, the day-to-day operations, as well as any other problems that will arise. Now, it's not just a one-person operation. A lot of manpower hours, a lot of individuals volunteer their time to come down here on their off day to help us out. It's not myself as chief of department. We all are here for the same person, the same reason, to help people out. So I have myself, first assistant chief, second assistant chief, captain, and 3 lieutenants that will be able to help us out run the day-to-day operations of EMS. As we were talking about before, it's a 24/7-a-day operation. So some people work in the day, some people work at night, so we have to have a 24/7 coverage.
Right.
So that's what 5-minute response time we have, over a little under 2,400 calls. It's a lot of effort.
Wow. So tell me about one of the most unique calls you've been on in all these years.
Definitely been on a few of them. An incident that comes to my mind back in, I believe it was 2009, we had an auto accident. Two individuals in a car were coming up Seacliff Avenue and crashed into a telephone pole at the corner of Seacliff Avenue and McGrady Street. Crashed into a telephone pole. The telephone pole had a transformer on the top of it. It snapped in half. The transformer was in close proximity of the vehicle, and the impact of the crash was so great, it imploded the vehicle and exploded on impact. And I went there on the fire department side of it as a firefighter. But it's one of those things where you don't forget. You just keep in the back of your mind and you just move on, because how EMS is, fire department, police department, it's an ever-changing, dynamic atmosphere where you can't dwindle on the past. You remember it, you keep it in the back of your mind, and you move on, because there's something else, and you know there's going to be something else down the line.
Right. Wow.
So you always have to keep that in perspective.
Yeah. Now, any saves have you done?
Yes, actually, the past year we had an award ceremony last week. Sorry, we had 29 life save awards on 5 separate calls that we had.
Wow.
We had 5 CPR saves last year alone.
Wow.
So we save. That's the goal of an EMS provider, is to save a life, and we had 5 of them last year.
Wow. So what's your recommendation to people who are in a life-threatening situation, say heart attack or something? And
the best recommendation is obviously it's hard to say that now, to remain calm and collective, because the more information you give to the dispatcher or whoever you would be calling, whether it's a relative or the dispatcher, give them as much information as possible and try to stay on the phone as long as possible. Because the more information you can give to the dispatcher is more information that they can relay to us in the field, incoming units, to see what's going on. If it's how long the chest pain's been going on for, where did you fall down from. And a lot of times we'll get calls for something of one nature, and we'll actually pull up and find out it's something else. We could be getting called for a diabetic, meanwhile we'll pull up and it's an auto accident, or it's chest pain and it's something else. So it's good to pinpoint exactly what's going on. If it's chest pain and you're diabetic, focus on the chest pain instead of other ailments you may have.
And time is of the essence.
Time is definitely of the essence. So the information to the dispatcher as quickly as possible, pertinent information, as well as you want to make sure that you maintain that sense of emergency vehicles are coming, but maybe you want to put that door, you want to open up that door, you want to maybe open up some lights outside to kind of signal where the house is, because that's another issue that we run into constantly, where there's some houses that don't have visibility at night, where you may not be able to see a house, sometimes even a street. So anything where you can do it, if you have multiple people at the house, I would suggest even having someone meeting you at the front door, either outside, on the street, waving you down, something that can gain attention of incoming units. That will be definitely helping us help the patient out, because there'll be less of a delay of trying to find an address at night.
And of course, unobstructed numbers on the house.
Preferably reflective, so when we come in with our lights on at night, we can shine either a flashlight or just the lights of the ambulance. They're bright enough to illuminate a number on the side of the house.
Very good. So you enjoy you enjoy this?
Every minute of it.
Do you?
Yeah, I wouldn't be in this position talking to you if I didn't enjoy it.
Exactly. Good.
Another issue that I want to bring up is we just recently changed our membership requirement. It used to be where you had to be a driver of the ambulance and an EMT. That's for full-time status. We currently have a part-time status now, where anyone from the community can actually come here, be a qualified driver, and just drive for us. If we do have people from the community, if they want to come and help us out, we're more than happy to have members from the community help us out in a non-medical aspect, either driving, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work, there's committee work, there's other different specialties, there's training.
Right.
So if you're in the Glen Cove community, you want to give back, you know, we have a way to give back now. Before, you had to be an EMT.
Right.
And it's pretty much, it's a 6-month class, 2 nights a week, 3 hours a night. So it's something where
do the driving.
To be a New York State emergency medical technician.
Right, right.
So if you can donate that time, at least as a part-time status, you can come down, you can drive, you can do other committee work, you can do behind-the-scenes stuff, and you'll still be almost as valuable.
Right.
As an EMT would have been.
Right.
So we have both now.
Now, do the
up until a couple
have,
years ago, we never had that.
Trucks have GPS and stuff? So.
That's correct. We have GPS built into the front dash cab of all our ambulances.
Right. And what, well, obviously to be driver, you have to be at least 17, but what's the age to
you have
join
to 18.
18 you have to be, okay. And then what about to be an EMT? What's the age, 18?
The same, you have to be a New York State EMT, you have to be 18 years of age.
Right. Good.
Same thing with the part-time member. To be a part-time, you have to be 18. And
you always welcome volunteers and stuff, right?
Volunteers from Glen Cove as well out of the surrounding community. There actually isn't any residency requirement. So you can live anywhere, Nassau County, Suffolk County, as long as you can make that requirement.
Right.
To be a full-time member, the requirement is 18 years of age. No residency requirement. You have to commit to 20 volunteer hours a month, and then you have to be a qualified driver.
Right.
To be a part-time member, no residency requirement, 18 years of age or older, and the only thing you have to meet is the qualified driver. So we have 6 qualified driver trainers that you would have to go out with. They'll teach you anywhere from the streets, because another misconception is it's not driving the ambulance isn't just physically driving the ambulance. There's a lot of other work where you have to know where different medical equipment and their location is on the ambulance. You have to know somewhat some medical terminology, because you're going to be working hand in hand with our EMTs.
Right, right.
Obviously, EMT in the back would be useless if you don't have a driver in the front. So when we roll out, we come out with 2 personnel. We have an EMT in the back with the patient at all times, and then we have a driver in the front.
Right, right.
Who could be a police officer, who could be a firefighter, who could be another EMS member that's also an EMT. But there's always 2 people on each ambulance call.
Right. Good, good. Very good. All right, Matt, I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, Kevin.
All best of luck, continued success. Thank you for volunteering.
No problem.
For our city. Thank you for watching. I'm here with Sergeant John Nagle, who just came out of the FBI training course. John, congratulations.
Thank you.
I heard you do really well.
Yes, I guess you could say that. I maintained an A+ average in my courses. I did pretty well in the physical aspect of the academy. It was
pretty well. You did the most push-ups, right?
Yes, for our class, I had the record for the plank and the sit-ups. I'm sorry, the push-ups.
Cool.
So it was a great experience. It was 11 weeks long. During that 11 weeks, you're given a choice of classes which you can take, including forensic science, behavioral science. There were classes for leadership, ethics, media relations. So it's quite a gambit of courses that you could take.
Now, what the forensics? What did you learn in that?
Forensics was probably one of the most interesting courses. We went over DNA and how DNA is going to be used to advance law enforcement even further limits. The mitochondrial DNA, nuclear DNA. We went over different crime scenes. We went over aspects that the FBI can assist us in local investigations. They have a lab right on base at the academy. We went over the Unabomber case. We went over serial killers. We went over the OJ case, John Benet Ramsey.
And just reviewing what forensics were used in those cases?
Yes, and actually went over the crime scene photos of the crime scene itself. It was very interesting.
And then the physical aspect, that is to what? Continue, the chief was saying before, to keep people in shape in the department?
Yeah, not only were the courses given, all the courses are accredited through the University of Virginia, but they also have a physical fitness aspect of the academy. So on a daily, on a weekly basis, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays are classes. So your typical day, you start 7, breakfast, and it's classrooms from 8 to 5. And one of those classes would be a physical fitness class. They would go over nutrition, they would go over the strength aspect, endurance. We ran on the average of probably 3 or 4 times a week. We would start with the 1.5 mile run, and it would go all the way up to 6.1 miles. And that would accumulate with what's called the Yellow Brick Road Run. And that was a run through the Marine course, the Marine base obstacle course. So it was an accomplishment for us to get that gold brick. The gold brick is a voluntary, aspect of the academy. Not everyone elects to do the gold brick, but I would say 99% of the academy class does. And the challenge courses leading up to that brick, they take you in increments. You run 1.5 miles, then 2.5, then 3.5, 4.5. So they build you up to the run, and that run is finishes up with a 6.1 mile run through, like I said, the Marine course, obstacle course. You're climbing walls, you're scaling rock cliffs, you're wading through creeks.
Wow. And
the day we did it, it was probably the worst rain they had in Virginia within a long time, so the conditions were horrible. We actually had a few of the candidates actually blew out knees, rotated cuffs, ankles.
Because they're in their 40s to 50s.
Yeah,
right?
we had, the average age I would say was probably about 42. We've had some of the candidates were 29, the youngest was 29, and the oldest I would say was probably about 54, 53.
So did you get your gold brick?
Yes.
Good, good. Now tell me, so that training, it was in Quantico, Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the training that you received, how are you gonna bring that to Glen Cove?
It's something that's not spoken about a lot around the police community is physical fitness. Civil service, law dictates once you're on a police job, usually, you're not retested for your, physically you're not retested. And when you're out in the street and you get into a violent situation, you want to know the person that's going to back you up is physically fit. You don't want a 350-pound guy backing you up that's going to be out of breath in 5 minutes, in 5 seconds.
Right.
So they go over that. They go over the, how the strength aspect, endurance aspect is going to assist you in the street. So if you do encounter that situation where you're going to end up struggling with a defendant for minutes, you're going to want to be in shape. Not only the strength and endurance aspect, they also go with nutrition. And with my profession, we're not the healthiest of professions. You have the fast foods, you have the shift work. So a lot of times you're in the stereotypical type cop donut, cop, McDonald's.
Right.
So, they're trying to teach you to be a healthier person. The food groups we go over, where not only are you eating, they want you to eat the different food groups. So it's a whole. It encompasses everything, not just the training, the endurance, the nutrition. And it was just an eye-opening experience.
Sure. So you're happy you went through it, and
it was a once in a lifetime experience.
Right.
When the chief nominated me, it was 11 weeks. So 11 weeks is a long time to be away from home, be away from family. So it took some thought, and I said, look, this is not going to come around again. It's less than 1% of the entire police force in the United States gets selected to go to this academy. So I said, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm not going to turn it down. And I'm so happy that I went. It was great.
That's excellent. Okay. All right. Thank you for being on the show.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for watching this week's episode of Kevin's Corner TV. I want to remind you to tune in every Friday night at 10 p.m. on channel 115 and also on YouTube, Kevin's Corner TV. See you next week.